Today we're going to be starting on page 3. So I have my frame piece here. I did go ahead and cut out the centerpiece, but I left the leaves on it. Now this is the one that has that little chunk taken out of it because where it was on the page, the white flowers were here. I'm going to be turning it this way, and then I have my extra flower here. I'm going to actually be turning this upside down and adhering this on here, which I'll do in just a minute. Now the first cardstock piece I cut is 6 inches by 5 inches. On the 5-inch side, I scored it 1/2 inch, and this is going to be along the bottom. I'm going to go ahead and fold on that score line. Then I'm going to take my frame piece and place it here on this part, like this. And I'm going to be taking this and adhering this right here. But I'm going to be actually placing a magnet under this flower to hold this on my flap when I go to place this on the page. So, taking my adhesive, I'm just going to place this magnet right in the center of my flower piece. And now when I adhere my frame onto the page, I'm going to adhere the side, the bottom, and this side, and all of this is going to be adhered down. The whole top piece is going to be left open, and then I'll come back and add this piece on. Now that I have my first piece on, I'm just going to set this on here and then apply just a little bit of adhesive across the top of my flower. And I'm going to put adhesive on this part that's hanging down because it's going to go on top of the leaves. And I will place this here, covering up that jagged edge. Now I'm going to take my scissors and fussy cut around here and leaving myself that small border. This is what my piece looks like when it's done. I do see that the leaf here is popped up a little bit, so I'm going to go ahead and apply a little bit of adhesive to that so it will stay adhered down. And now I have my white paper cut to 4 inches by 2 3/4. I may need to trim this slightly just based on my adhesive on my sides, how thick it is. Hopefully it'll slide down in here. But this will be for my photo mat. Now once my piece is ready, I'm going to place this over here on the left side of the page, and I am actually going to put this about 1/4 inch from the edge and placing the tab on the bottom of the page. Next, I have 2 pieces that measure 3 1/4 by 4 3/4. On the 4 3/4 inch side, I have scored it 1/2 inch across one side. It is now the top edge, and I've used the corner rounder on the bottom at 2 corners. I'm going to fold on these score lines, and then I'm going to open this up. This one, I also need to use my corner rounder on my top right corner. And I'm going to place this here on the edge of my page. Now with my second piece, I'm going to place it here right next to the first one with a very small space between the two so that when they flip, they don't hit each other and mess up. Now the last piece I have is 2 1/2 by 5 1/2. On the 2 1/2 inch side, I scored it 1/2 inch along the left-hand side. On the 5 1/2 inch side, I scored it 1/2 inch on each side. And I'm going to fold on all of these score lines to create a small pocket for the page. Now this pocket is going to go here on the left side of the page, but I have to make sure that all these flaps will actually close without this getting in the score line. So mine is actually a little too large, so I need to rescore it and slightly change that. So the way I will do that is I will just take one of these sides, run it through my scoreboard again just a little bit smaller, and then I'll refold it so that it fits between these pieces, and this will close without puckering. Now the final piece of cardstock, cut to 6 1/4 by 4 1/4. I use my corner rounders on all 4 corners. This will be the photo mat for the pocket on the page. Then I'll go ahead and fold these over and fold this over, and we'll start adding our decorative papers. I'm going to start by adding my second magnet to the back side of the flap, add my adhesive, and then I'm going to close this to place my magnet on this flap here. Now for my flaps here, I'm going to be using my cut apart cards. I've got this one that's going to go here for sure. So I'm going to cut the corners with my corner rounder, and this one's going to go here. Now I'm going to use this one as well, and I have 2 different ways I can do this. I can add this one here, so I have my decorative papers here, and when this is closed, you'll see that decorative paper here as well. Or I can place a white photo mat here and have a photo here, and then place this card here on the back side, so that when you flip open, there will be a photo mat here, and then the decorative paper here, a photo mat here. If I put this here, then I'll put 2 white photo mats here so that the photos are on the inside. And I think that's what I am going to do for my album. So I'm going to go ahead and cut my corners here, and I will apply both of these to the front of those flaps. I did forget I needed to round this corner as well, so I did round that one to fit on the flap. Once my flaps are decorated, I'm going to open up, and for here I have 2 white mats that are 3 by 4. Now for this one, I rounded the top 2 corners, and I'll be placing this one here. This one I rounded the top 2 corners in the bottom right corner, and I'll be placing this one here on this flap. Now from my ephemera pieces or my die cuts, I have the camera I'm going to place here, and I'm only going to be adhering down that bottom portion. And then I have the lens, and I'm going to place this one here, and I'm going to be adhering down the pieces that will connect with that black cardstock. Next, I'm going to move down to the bottom flap. I've cut my white cardstock to 4 1/4 by 3 3/4, and I've rounded the bottom 2 corners. I'll be placing this here on the flap, and then I have this from the die cut assortment I'm going to be placing here. Now I'm going to be very careful. My magnet is right here, and I do not want him overlapping the magnet at all, because that'll make it less likely that the piece will close with a tight close. So I'm going to just be very careful at how I position him. So he's going to be just to the left of the magnet, and I'm only going to be adhering the bottom portion down so that photo can slide behind him. Now for the base of the page, I am using this here. So I've started with the floral side. I've cut a piece 1 3/4 by 4 1/4, and that's going to go on the front of my pocket. Then I've flipped over to the camera side, and I've cut a piece 5 1/2 by 4 1/4. I used my corner rounder on the 2 right-hand corners, and I'm going to place this here, just slightly tucking into the pocket like this. Now the final thing for the front of the page, I have my photo mat, and I have my 4 by 6 white paper I'm going to place on the back side of the mat, and then I'll place the mat in the pocket, and I'll add my decorative paper to the front later when I do my finishing touches. Now for the back side of the page, the first piece I have measures 3 1/4 by 5 1/2. On the 5 1/2 inch side, I've scored it 1/2 inch on each side. I'm going to fold on these score lines to create a large belly band for my page. And I'm going to be adhering this right into the center of my page. Now I've already marked mine, but I want this to be centered on my page. Once I have my belly band on, my next 2 pieces measure 3 1/4 by 4 3/4. On the 4 3/4 inch side, we're going to score 1/2 inch. You're going to round the opposite 2 corners on both pieces. Now I am going to take each of these pieces and fold on those score lines. I'm going to take that first piece and I'm going to apply it here at the top, making sure that that edge is lined up with the top of my score line here. Once this piece is on, I'm going to flip open and I'm going to take my second piece and I'm going to adhere the second piece here to the bottom part. Once these pieces are on, I'm going to take this piece next. I have my frame piece cut out. Now where this camera is, or the lens is, I'm going to be placing a magnet on the back side. So I have my adhesive and I'm just going to try to place this into the center of that lens as much as I possibly can. And now that I have this piece, I'm going to place this here on the front of my upper flap, applying adhesive to the edges and to the sides and to the bottom section only so that my photo can slide down from the top. Now I did use my corner rounder on the bottom 2 corners. I forgot to mention that. I have here my 2 1/4 by 2 1/4 square piece of white cardstock for my photo, and I'm just going to place this here in my frame. Next, I have a piece that measures 1 1/2 by 2 1/2. On the 2 1/2 inch side, I've scored it 1/2 and 5/8 of an inch. I have scored on both of these lines. So I want this piece to look like this so that I have that little, almost like an L shape, but I need this piece to sit here. So this part is going to be on top of this, but the tab is going to be between this tab or this flap and the bottom flap. So I'm going to set this here. And I'm just going to hold this in place for now. I have my second magnet that I'm going to place here, right on top of my first magnet. And now I have this piece that I want to place here so that it is over top of the lens on the page. Now to do this, I'm first going to remove the adhesive backing off of the magnet. And then I've also applied adhesive to the entire back side of this piece. Now I'm just going to set this piece down here, and I'm going to make sure that this piece doesn't move as I lift this up a little bit. And now I can take this piece off and make sure that this is adhered down to my cardstock really well. Now I'm going to take my scissors, I'm going to fussy cut around this, and then I'm going to narrow this down a little tiny bit down here so that it's a little bit narrower, a little bit smaller, and I'll come back and I'll show you, and we're going to add this back on. Now here is my piece. It's about 5/8 of an inch wide down here. So I'm going to take my adhesive and apply it just to that 1/2 inch tab. I am going to actually attach this here first. And then I'm going to set this down on the flap and adhere this down. So this should be adhered down on top of the front of the lower flap. The 1/2 inch score line should actually line up with the score line on the page, and then we've got that 1/8 inch extra piece to accommodate all the bulk of the papers that's going to be in here. And then it will still attach here to close the page. And because we have this nice small black border, even if the lens isn't exactly where it is on here, you won't see the difference because it's hiding behind that paper. Now here, I've got one mat that measures 3 inches by 4 inches. I've used my corner rounder on the top 2 corners. I'm going to place this here on the top of this flap. Then for here, I've got my cut apart card. I've rounded my top 2 corners, and I'm going to place this here on the front of this flap. Next, I'm going to flip down, and for here I have another white mat that's 3 inches by 4 inches. The bottom 2 corners are rounded, and I'm going to place this here on the bottom flap. For this center section, I have this piece here. It's 3 by 4 1/4, and this came from this paper here. And I've cut from this corner because I want more of this like bluish color in my piece. So I'm going to adhere this down here first. Now I have this piece here that I have cut the center section out of, and I'm going to be placing this here. But before I adhere this down, I've got some pieces from my die cuts. I've got this piece first. So I'm going to place my frame based on where these pieces are going to go. And I want all of these to fit onto the belly band so that they don't hang over. So I'm going to place this one at an angle down here. I've got this that I'm going to place here. And then I have this lens that I'm going to tuck here behind her. Once I have my pieces positioned, I'm going to go ahead and start with this here. So to make sure that I have this in the position that I want it, I am just going to put a line up there at the top, and then I can take these off. Now I'm going to apply my adhesive to the sides and to the bottom. I'm going to leave the top open for the photo to go down. Once the frame is on, I have my white mat that's 2 3/4 by 2. I'll go ahead and slide this down in here. Now I'm going to bring my die cuts back in, arrange them back onto my piece here. And once I have a general idea, I'm going to start just placing these pieces down on the page. Once these pieces are on, I need my pieces for here. So I've cut these pieces. They're 2 inches by 4 1/4, and they are from this paper. I've cut straight down this strip here. Now for the first one, I need to round the 2 corners on the left-hand side. So I'm going to place this piece here, and it'll tuck just slightly into the belly band. Then this one, I'm going to tuck just slightly into the belly band here on this side of the page. Once these papers are on, I can go ahead and close this up, and everything will stay closed with that magnet, and we have enough room for it to expand because we have the 1/8 inch piece here to allow this magnet to still catch. The final thing is for my piece under my belly band. I have a piece 8 1/2 by 6 1/4. On the 8 1/2 inch side, I scored it 4 1/4. I rounded my 4 corners, and I am going to fold on my score line to make a photo booklet. And now for the inside, I have 2 pieces of white cardstock that are 4 inches by 6 inches. I'm going to round 2 corners. I'm going to open these up and place 1 piece on each inside panel here. And I will do the covers later when we do the finishing touches. Once the photo book is ready, I'm going to just place it right under my belly band here. And that's it for the back side of the page and this tutorial. So in the next tutorial, we will obviously go on to page 4, and then I'll have another video where we will put the pages in the album, add the decorative papers to the inside of the cover, and then do our finishing touches. I will see you in the next tutorial.